I think you could start.
Okay, good evening and welcome everybody to the third of our series on Safe Summer Away from Home for our children. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to all our viewers on the website and on YouTube and on Zoom. I want to start by thanking Yaakov Berman, Miriam Simon, and CFJE Operation Survival for sponsoring these events, which are crucial to us as parents and educators and those of us who work in camps, so that we can provide a safe, healthy, and productive summer for kids. And as we know, the Rebbe said on numerous occasions that what can be accomplished in 8 weeks of summer in a camp is more than we can accomplish in an entire year of school. And we have to realize that and really grab this opportunity and make sure that we're using it to its fullest. We're in the time of year now that's Sfiras HaOmer, and of course, Pirkei Avos is a big highlight of Sfiras HaOmer. And in Pirkei Avos, we are told, "B'makom she'ein hanoshim hishtadel liyos ish," that in a place where there are no men, meaning there are no mention, it's on us to be the mensch, to be the one that rises above and make sure that our environment is safe, our children are safe, our communities are safe. And if we want to talk about somebody who's really taken this to the next level, we can talk about Dr. Debbie Fox, who has gone above and beyond for the safety of children across the world with her innovative program called Safety Kid, where she has really given her life to promoting safe environments for children. And we know we have a mitzvah in the Torah, that we have to guard our souls and guard our lives and our health very, very carefully and hold our physical state very dearly. There is a Hayom from the Rebbe that says it's Erev Rosh Hashanah, and it says we have no idea how dear the body is to Hashem. And therefore we have to take care of our bodies because they are the kelim, they are the vessels for our souls. They are precious vessels for our souls. So if we have to take care of ourselves, we as adults take care of ourselves, it's a kal v'chaimer that we have to take care of the bodies of our children and hold them very, very preciously. To that end, we are very, very fortunate tonight to hear from Debbie Fox, who is going to talk to us about keeping our kids safe in camp. We all know that with the advent of summer and the opportunity to send our kids away to the fresh air and experience grass and trees and being able to run around and enjoy themselves in the sun, there are some pitfalls that we need to be aware of. And the more prepared we are, the better we can prepare our children. So without further delay, I would like to introduce and thank Debbie Fox for joining us this evening and giving us the education that we all need to keep our children safe this summer. Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Dena. That was a very beautiful introduction, and I learned a lot from it. So thank you. I did want to say I am not a doctor, but I do appreciate your giving me the honor. And I do want to thank Yaakov Berman and the entire team for constantly focusing on so much on behalf of families and on behalf of safety. And I've seen so many of the webinars, and I'm always so touched and impressed. So thank you all. I will say that before COVID, I did one for you with Rivki Jungreis and I think somebody else, and we all had such a wonderful time together, and there was such wonderful energy, and I'm hoping there will be a day we can all do that together again, because it was wonderful just all being in person together. And these webinars are great, but there's a beauty to the energy of being in the room together, and I missed that. That was a wonderful evening, Yaakov, that you put together several years ago, and refuah shlema to you, Yaakov. Okay, so I'm going to be kind of very direct and on target. what you may notice, you probably don't notice, is that I am right now in Eretz Yisrael, and it is 3 a.m. here, and I am in a hotel lobby. And so hopefully I won't be disturbing anybody around here. And I have my own little corner here. But I want to say that when I realized I was coming to Eretz Yisrael, and Yaakov had asked me several months ago to do this on this night, I really said immediately, and if I get up at 3 a.m., then I will. I see his dedication and the dedication of the team, and to me, it really means that I have to join it. And I will join it because I want to help all of you to keep your kids safe in camp this summer. And I know we're all concerned about it. And so let's all look at being very proactive. So I'm just gonna dive in with you, and we're gonna really talk about what you need to do and how you need to do it. So one of the things that we're gonna really talk most about today is you as parents and the role that you can play. Fewer than 30% of parents ever speak to their children about sexual abuse prevention, and yet it is the single most important tool towards protecting children, is that relationship between parents and children, and having parents provide knowledge to children. When parents provide knowledge to children, what children know is A, all of the information you've just taught them, they're aware, they know what to do, and B, they know they can go back to you. They can talk to you if something happens, or if they have a question, or if they're uncomfortable, because you're the one who brought it up. And so that's what we need to talk about today. We're going to talk about how you can take your role as a parent and how you can be most effective. So what do we want? Today we're focused on camp. What are the 5 tools of the empowered camp parent? Because that's who you want to be, the empowered camp parent. 1, be an educated and empowered parent about your child's camp. 2, educate your children about the rules of personal safety. 3, recognize potential abusers. 4, know the warning signs of sexual abuse. And 5, know what to do if abuse is suspected. And those are the 5 points we're pretty much going to talk about today. Okay, so 1, let's talk about empowering yourself. How can you be an educated parent? How do you even know if this is a safe camp for your child? So the way you begin is, let's go back, the way you begin is on the phone. The way you begin is before we desperately are filling out these forms so we can get our kids into camp. Because what camps all know is we're all desperate to get our kids in, right? What they need to know is that we all care about the safety of our children in camp. And when we all make phone calls, let them know this is important to us, they will all start following through and making sure that safety is a priority. There are many camps that already do. There are many camps that do. But there's a role we play as parents so that we know that they have policies and procedures that are in place so that they can minimize the risk of sexual abuse. So you need to make sure, you need to ask them questions. Are you accredited? What certifications do you have? You want to look into the reputation of the camp. Not just, do I want my kid in, but how careful are they? Ask others who have gone, how responsible are they? What are the role of supervision? How responsible are the counselors? How trained are the counselors? What are other people saying? Ask the right questions, not just are the kids having fun? Are the kids safe in camp? So ask others who have gone solid questions to give you information. You want to ask others, were their child safety protocol, right? And when you call the camp, you want to ask them, are there any child safety protocol in place? Would you mind sending them to me? They all should be willing to do that. Is there a history of any incidents of sexual abuse in your camp or any other traumatic incidents? Ask them, has there been any incidents of serious or traumatic events within the camp, and how are they handled? But you can ask them those questions. And before you send your child to a camp, you should be asking, what's the screening process for staff, for camp staff, and for counselors? Remember, these counselors are a couple of years older than our own children. So how are they screened? What kind of sexual abuse prevention training does the camp offer staff and counselors and volunteers? What do they offer? Is there any workshop? Is there anything that they're doing? Is there a policy, right? Is there an orientation? Is there a training that talks about body safety policies, about not developing special relationships with children, about keeping themselves physically distant somewhat from the children, all those kinds of things. What has the camp put into place? And that's what you basically need to be looking at. What are the policies the camp has put into place in order to minimize the risk of anything inappropriate happening in camp? So these are questions that you need to ask in a very, here what I've done is just kind of done it in a very, very quick way so that you kind of can ask them quickly. Is there a policy for counselors in camp to sign? How are the campers made aware of what to do if they feel unsafe? Campers. And can campers communicate with their family if they feel unsafe? How are allegations handled? When are families informed? Are there at least 2 counselors assigned to sleep in each bunk? If something happened to a child and they needed a trusted adult to talk to, who in the camp would you recommend? And we're going to talk a lot more about that question. Would they say it's the camp nurse? Would they say that it is a division head? Who would they say, is there a camp mom? Who would they say the child should go to if a child feels unsafe? So these are important questions that you need to be asking. And so we've talked all about these type of questions, asking friends, asking others, thinking about how you want to ask it to the camp. But these are very direct questions for you specifically to ask a camp before you enroll a child. And if you already enrolled your child, you can still ask the questions. And what I stop and say here is, we're not used to asking these kinds of questions. We're not, because what we want is to get our kid into camp. But if all of us would stop and ask these questions, they would know they have to be prepared. We have to empower ourselves. That's why I did that list at the end. Those just simple questions in a very direct way. We need to empower ourselves. We need to very firmly, just kindly but firmly ask the questions. Can you tell me what your policies are? Can you tell me what your training is? Can you tell me who kids would go to? Can you simply ask the questions? Be prepared, know what you want to say, ask it in an open way where you're open to hear their response. That's how you empower yourself, by having information and knowledge about the camp. Okay, so that's the first step. The first step to our kids being safe in camp is for us to know that the camp prioritizes their safety, and that we all, as parents, call to find out. We did our due diligence as parents. That makes us an empowered parent. Okay, we're going to go on to the second part of what we talked about, number 2, to making us an empowered parent, which is we have to educate our children about the rules of personal safety. Okay, so there's some really important, we're going to start with the more general, and then what I'm really going to do is hone in on camp conversations. Okay, so these are rules that all of you should know that you've already reviewed with your children. And if you haven't, we're going to be going through them more focused on camp, but these are just those basic rules you as parents need to have gone over with your children, or need to go over with your children before they go to pet camp. All of you need to have these conversations. You can't wait for your children to ask you. You're the parent. You need to open the conversation. If you don't open the conversation, they don't know they can come to you. So you need to open the conversation. And so what are some of the points, the major points you need to let them know? Your body belongs to you, and everybody has to respect that. The areas of your body covered by your bathing suit are your private parts. Now, as parents, I'm gonna say you've got some choices on how you do that. The most optimal way to do that is to actually tell your children the name of their body parts. The research shows the children who know the names of their body parts actually have a lesser statistical, they are less likely to be molested than children who do not know the names of their body parts, because they've had conversation, they know what's happening, they know what's going on, and they're able to avoid it, get out of it, or get themselves help. By this point that your children are going to camp, I guarantee you, they all know the names of their body parts. They probably haven't heard it from their parents, but they do know the names of their body parts. So it would be a wonderful thing if there could be a conversation and you yourself identify it. Now, I understand that for many, that's extremely uncomfortable. If it's uncomfortable, then the next best thing is to make sure that you're identifying their private parts for them as those private parts under a bathing suit in whatever names you've given them before. But they need to have a name for each part of their body. Because if something ever were to happen and no one's ever told them how to talk about it, they don't know what to say. They don't know what to say. And so you need to let them know what the private areas of their body are. You need to identify it for them. And I'd say for those who can't do that, then at least point to the parts of their body so they know what you're talking about. But as I said, optimal, identify body parts. Second, if you have your own names for body parts, utilize them. And third, at least point to them so they know exactly what you're talking about and it's clear. You want to tell them that touching, talking about, or looking at the private areas of their body is never a game. And especially in camp, sometimes people do play games, and they might play a game and say, with private parts and say, it's only a game. And what your children need to know from you is touching, looking at, and talking about private parts is never a game. If anybody ever says it's a game, it's an automatic do tell. It's an automatic that they have to tell a trusted adult. We're going to talk more about that soon, right? It's also touching, looking at, or talking about the private areas of the body is never a secret. And so if anybody says this is a secret between me and you, it's clear that that's not okay and that's an automatic do tell. If someone says don't tell, you know you do tell, because no adult should ever tell a child a secret and say that it's a secret you can't tell. And so you automatically need to tell, right? Even if they threaten you and say, if you tell, I'm going to beat you up or beat your parent up or whatever, your parent will have to handle it. They're an adult and they will handle it, okay? And if anyone, even at home or even while at camp, wants to touch or look at or talk about the private areas of your body, or asks you to look at, touch, or talk about the private areas of their body, I want you to get away and tell me or tell a trusted adult right away. So if anyone asks to touch you or look at you or talk about your private parts or wants you to do that to them, I want you to get away. I want you to yell no if you can, to get away and to let me know right away, right? The areas covered by your bathing suit are private. We talked about that. You know, you should be specific about that. So you want to be just really clear that they can't touch the private parts of anyone else's body. They can say no anytime that they're uncomfortable, to no matter who it is. If it's an adult, if it's a teacher, if it's a family member, if it's a counselor in camp or a division head, if it's a brother or a sister, a cousin, a friend, or even another camper, if it's anybody in their world, even a rabbi, anybody, they should say no if they are uncomfortable or if somebody wants to touch them in the private areas of their body. It's never chutzpah to say no to an adult or someone that everyone respects. It doesn't matter. If someone wants to touch them, they can say no to anybody and get out of it. And it's never lashon hara to tell about anyone inappropriately touching you. And what you have to tell your child is, I'm your parent. I'll believe you and protect you, no matter what happened, when it happened, or who it happened. Now, these points in this conversation, all these points are points that are important for parents to find opportunities to talk to their children about very clearly. These are all really important points for you. What I'm going to do is go over just a kind of another way of viewing it that I recently heard that I really liked. And then I'm going to give you some very specific camp discussions. Okay. So somebody said that in order to stay safe, you can tell children that they have to be wary. They have to be careful with their eyes, their ears, and their mouth. Eyes, no one should show them pictures of. No one should show them videos. No one should show them anything related to the private areas of their body or anything that would make them uncomfortable. I need to tell you that recently a son of mine told me that when he was in camp, a counselor came and sat on his bed. Just by the way, we tell kids very clearly in camp, it's one child, one bed. That kids shouldn't be sleeping in bed with you. Everybody stays in their own bed, right? But his counselor sat on the bed with him and he started showing him pictures of a trip that he went on, to Yosemite or somewhere. And he's showing him all these beautiful pictures. And then he goes, oops, I shouldn't have shown you that, huh? And in the picture, the counselor was not wearing clothing, and there was another friend of his with him, and they were inappropriate with each other. And he was showing my son these pictures in camp. That's inappropriate. That's inappropriate. We have to tell them that what to do, that if someone shows you pictures, you need to get out and you need to tell a trusted adult. Ears, nobody should be talking to them using language that's not appropriate or language that's making them uncomfortable. And no one should talk to them about topics related to their private parts or to intimacy or sexuality. And mouth, it's important not to engage in these inappropriate stories or group discussions where everybody's talking about these things, and no games that involve kissing or using the mouth on anybody else's body. So they can use their eyes, their ears, and their mouth to stay safe. Okay, now I made a decision to kind of put a discussion down so you can follow me, because what I did is I really related this to a way you might present the information, these like really basic rules that I've given you in a camp format to kids, right? So there's lots of ways you could do that. What you really want to do is focus on a window of opportunity. You don't want to say to your child, okay, we're going to sit down right now, and I was told that you have to have this discussion before you go to camp. So you sit there and we're going to do this. That's what we're going to do. What you don't want to do that. What you want to do are find natural windows of opportunity. You go to the store, you bring home new bathing suits, you're putting them away, and you say, wait a minute, putting these bathing suits away, you know what it's reminding me? We haven't had a talk about personal safety in such a long time. And here it is, time for camp. Let's sit down and talk about it a little. You can do it when you're packing. You can do it before they leave and say, you know what, I feel like we spent so much time packing and so much time getting ready and all that kind of stuff. And I never really shared with you things that are important to me to share with you about keeping safe in camp. Let's sit down for just a little bit of time together. So you come up with a natural way to have this discussion with your children. You come up with that. Make it natural so that your children want to engage with you, that they hear it's not uncomfortable for you. So I'm going to just kind of go through this with you in this way because I want you to hear a lot of different lines that really, really relate to camp. So here's a discussion one might have, or parts of it, however you choose to do it, but it's a way that it's totally related to camp and camp issues. So as you're about to leave for camp, I think it's important to review the rules of safety. These rules may come up in many situations you may face in camp. And I know that it may feel uncomfortable to talk about. We don't really talk about your body very often, but before you go to camp, I really do think it's an important time. And even if it's a bit uncomfortable, I think it's even uncomfortable for me, so I'm sure it's uncomfortable for you, I want to have this conversation. It's important for me to have this conversation with you. So we have discussed that your body belongs to you, and we've discussed that nobody ever has a right to look at or touch or talk about your body. And as your independence grows, it's only natural that you're going to be spending more and more times away from home, times at camp, times independently. Things are going to be a little different. And camp tends to have a different culture than the school year. It's more free in camp. It's less supervised. There's no parental or teacher supervision. And most of the supervision you do have is from counselors who aren't much older than you are. I went to camp too. And I know that kids have discussions and they kind of use language in camp that they may not use during the regular school year. Can I just tell you to be cautious? Be cautious. I want you to feel at the end of the summer that you're proud of you. And even though these discussions may have gone on around you, be aware and be cautious with what you say and with the conversations you engage in. Be proud of yourself. And you might find that in camp, there are games that kids play that involve the private areas of the body. Or possibly kids or even adults may expose their private parts to others. It sometimes happens in camp. Sometimes kids do things like they try to embarrass other kids by taking their clothes away while they're in the shower, or boys will pull bathing suits off while in the pool. It seems like fun, right? And everybody's laughing, or at least all the cool kids are laughing together. But the rules are there to protect you and protect all the other kids in your bunk too, all the time. Touching, looking at, and talking about the private areas of the body is never a game. Those games are not okay. And if those are things that are going on in camp, you need to talk to a counselor or an adult, because those are not okay to play games that involve the private areas of our body. So what would you do if in camp somebody did want to play a touching game, or somebody did show you inappropriate pictures? We really need to think together about a trusted adult that you can speak to in camp. We have to think about it now before you leave for camp, because if anything were to happen that broke any of the rules of personal safety or made you uncomfortable in any way, you need to go to a trusted adult and you need to discuss that situation. And it's their job to try to help you. So what I'd like us to do for a moment is to talk about who that trusted adult could be. So I've asked around a little bit. I've asked people who have gone to this camp before. And you might say something like, people really identify the camp nurse as somebody really special who understands. Or I understand that the division head is a really special person, and that's a person you can turn to. Or we have a friend who's a Rebbe in that camp. I think you can go to him, right? But before your child leaves, you need to tell your child who's the trusted adult that they should go to in any situation they're uncomfortable with, because if you don't identify it for them, they won't know. And so you have to really identify it for them. And you need them to know that it's not an imposition on the person. It's their job to be there to help you. If you actually felt that the person I sent you to didn't understand or respond to you, then you need to go to someone else until someone really does understand the seriousness of what you're concerned about. And I want you to know I'm always here, and you can always call me or talk to me. I do want to tell you that last summer, a parent did have this discussion with her child, and her child did go to a camp. It was a learning camp, actually. And another boy came into his bed. He was sleeping and was inappropriate, and he woke up in the middle of it. And he actually realized what was happening, and he got up and he ran out. And he told a counselor, and the counselor said to him, "It's nothing, boys will be boys." And he said he remembered what his mother said, that if somebody really doesn't understand, you have to go to another adult. And he went to the principal of his school, who was visiting the camp that day, and said, "I need to talk to you," and told him exactly what had happened. So these things do happen in camp, and it's important that you have the conversation so you guide them in terms of what to do, right? So help them understand who and how they might use that trusted adult. It's also important to mention to you that anyone at all in camp, even a person of authority like a Rebbe or a camp counselor, if anybody was inappropriate with you or anybody breaks the rules, you need to tell me, even if they tell you not to. I know that in situations like this, they may tell you it's a secret not to tell, but we know that anytime an adult or older child tells you to keep a secret from parents, it's understood that you immediately tell, because they should never ask a child to keep a secret, right? So no one should tell you secrets not to tell your parents. Touching the private areas of the body is never a secret. And so you need to tell me or a trusted adult, and we can figure out how to help. What I tell kids all the time is that touching is never a secret, period. Anything related to touching the private areas of your body is never a secret. It is always something that you need to speak to a trusted adult about, always. So then I say, just a thought I have. It's pretty hard to say no in situations like this. You know, if someone were to come over and were to want to show you pictures or want to touch or get engaged in an inappropriate conversation, or take pictures, it's very hard right then to just say no. So let's come up with some options together for how you might be somewhat more comfortable saying no or getting out of an uncomfortable situation. And it's a great idea to role play with them, how they can get out, how they can not make eye contact, how they can just stomp, but help them role play what they feel they could do if they were in an uncomfortable situation. Okay, so help your children with the concept of, and role play with them with the concept of, they're in the middle of something, how are they going to get out of it? And I also want to just say that it's important to say that I understand that sometimes kids might feel afraid or they just can't say no when it comes to touching. Sometimes that could happen, that there's a touching game or they're taking pictures or something's happening and you just can't get the word no out, or you can't get out of the situation. And I want you to know something, that I understand that. I understand sometimes, as much as we may want to say no, we can't. Maybe the person's bigger than us, or maybe the person is someone we respect, or maybe it's a friend that we just feel we can't say no to. Maybe we don't want to make a scene, but it's possible sometimes that something were to happen. And if it would ever happen, then tell me, or tell another trusted adult. Then we can help stop it from happening again. And that way we can help you. And it might be hard to tell, it might be embarrassing to tell, and I understand that. But your power is in your telling. If you tell, we can stop it from happening again. The way that they can take away your power is by making you not tell. because then they have the power to make it happen again. So the same is true, and this is an important thing for you to tell your kids. The same is true if you touched anybody else. I want you to let me know. I'll always love you, and I'll help you figure out what we need to do to get you the best help we can. But if anything ever happened and you touched someone, you touched a sibling, you touched someone at camp, you touched someone, come tell me. I know it's hard. I know it's embarrassing. But if you tell me, I can help you so it won't happen again. Because I'm your parent, and I'll believe you and protect you no matter what happened, when it happened, or who it happened with. I'll always be there for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to give our children, that's basically conversation and things that we can say and maybe ways we can present it. And there's three other essential tools that I want to talk about. One is to trust their inner voice, open discussion, and then I want to talk a little bit more about trusted adult. So trust their inner voice. I want you to start teaching them how to trust their inner voice. How, when they are uncomfortable with somebody or with something, I want you to train your children to let you know. If somebody makes them uncomfortable on the street, if a teacher makes them uncomfortable, if a friend makes them uncomfortable, if a relative makes them uncomfortable, if a situation is uncomfortable, if they don't want to go to someone's house, I want you to really help them identify what makes them uncomfortable and respect it. If you are in an uncomfortable situation that you can share with them, let them know. I was going to go into that store and there was a homeless person that was laying in front of the store and I felt very uncomfortable, so I didn't go. I left. I'll go to the store another day. That means I respected my inner voice. If I'm uncomfortable with anything, I need to respect that. You want them to tell you when they feel uncomfortable. You want them to give themselves permission to walk away from any situation that they feel uncomfortable. They don't have to explain themselves. They need to trust that voice that says, I don't feel comfortable, and hopefully tell you about it as a parent. Open discussion, that's really what we just talked about. And there is this little video clip here, but I'm not sure I'm going to be able to open it. It doesn't look like it's opening here, so I'm not going to. But it's those open discussions we just had in this very kind of natural way, where you share of yourself with them and you make things open and natural. That's an incredible tool for them to trust you. And the last thing is, be clear with them about who that trusted adult is, right? Be clear with them. Who's that trusted adult? Someone who's going to respect them in that which they tell you, not like the counselor who says, come on, everybody does this in camp, right? Makes time to talk to you without distraction, has appropriate boundaries, knows that they're a counselor or whatever their position is, the camp nurse, and I'm a camper, but isn't my best friend, right? Knows how and when to get help if they need help, and knows when to reach out for help, knows that this is above and beyond what they can do. That's what a trusted adult is. So you need to talk to them about how they know if someone's a trusted adult. If someone respects what they say, listens, pays attention, and gets them the appropriate help and keeps appropriate boundaries, that's a trusted adult. And that's what you want them to know. So those are the components. One, they need to go with a sense of an inner voice. If this is the way I feel, if I say I don't want to get up on stage in front of everybody and I'm uncomfortable with it, then I don't have to. Because my inner voice says, I've got stage fright. I'm scared. I don't want to. If everybody's going on these massive slides and my inner voice says, don't, I'm scared, it's okay. I can listen to my inner voice. So you want your children to learn to trust their inner voice. You want your children to you want yourself to open these conversations, and you want to make sure they know who their trusted adult is. Those are those 3 points that will really empower your kids to act. All right, let's talk a little bit here about how do we recognize potential offenders? What would we know? So this is really for parents, and is important just for you to know, which is what would we be looking out for? We'd be looking out for adults or older children that are in places that we wouldn't expect them, like private places in shul, or if we have company at our house, all of a sudden we see this adult or an older child in our bedroom with the child, as opposed to in a public area, or taking them into a private area on the yard where no one else could see them. You want to be aware of where they are with your children, right? If they're very personable and likable and charming to children, above and beyond what's normal, and that which might give you as parents that bit of an uncomfortable feeling, a little bit too charming sometimes. They're not perverts in dirty raincoats. They have a lot of charisma. So if they make you uncomfortable as an adult because they're paying too much attention to children, be aware of that. If they spend all their time playing with kids or in children's group rooms, adults should spend their time enjoying adults. If they're spending all their time with children, be wary of that. If during a kiddush, they're focused only on small children rather than adults, pay attention to that. If they have a level of friendliness with kids that sets off concerns, if they seem to be spending money on other people's children, buying them phones, buying them lots of games, buying them lots of food, treats, all that kind of stuff. If they don't have children of their own, but they have lots of children's books and games, if they are entertaining children, if they're taking them to sports activities. One community had a man in his mid-50s. He had an air hockey table and a pool table, and he had the kids hanging out in his house all the time. That's a red flag. A 50-year-old man should be engaged with other 50-year-olds, not with these young kids. There's another community that we're working with where a man has cell phones and things like that, and he's giving them to adolescent boys, and he's calling them all the time and grooming them, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Those are things you want to be careful of. There's someone else we heard about who has a convertible car and spends his time taking adolescent boys on drives in his convertible car. What you want to see is adults should be adults, and children should be children, and adults should be putting all their time and attention into children. Okay? So this is what I say is adults should play with adults and children should play with children. Okay. So how do they get the attention of kids so that they can be inappropriate with kids? Well, they groom them. They groom them. The way they do that is they target children who in one way or another are vulnerable, which could just mean they're homesick if they're going to camp. It could mean that there's a new baby in the house. It could be there's somebody who's ill. It could be financial issues. It could be a divorce in the family. It could be anything that makes the child a little bit more needy of adult care and attention. So what they do is they kind of exhibit interest in the child. They learn a lot about the child, what the child likes, what they dislike, what their interests are. They learn a lot about them and they engage in that with them. Spend a lot of time talking about it. They pretend that they're sharing all these common interests and experiences with them. And the relationship involves more and more of the child being special to them. And the more they latch onto that child as this being a special relationship, the more they are separating the children from their friends and their parents, because the relationship really does become a secret. It's just you and I know you better than others. I'm better than you than others. And this child can't really talk to other kids about it because it doesn't relate to them in their life. They're different, right? He has an adult relationship. He's not kicking ball with fifth graders, right? And it's a secret from his parents. And so this relationship then becomes very secretive, and the child becomes very attached to the person who's grooming them. And so what we want to make sure is that we can prevent that, because once that relationship becomes where the groomer really has a hold over and control over the child, that's when it becomes a physical relationship. And the child can't get out of it at that point, because the child's grateful for all they've done for them. He's been so good to the child, and it's been a secret. So what we want to focus on really is prevention. That's what we want to focus on, is really focusing on you as parents, preventing children from getting into that situation. So before your child goes to camp, discuss the fact that adults should have a relationship with adults and kids with kids, that they shouldn't have special relationships with adults in camp or older kids in camp, but they should be doing the same kinds of things with the adults or older kids that everybody else does. The Rebbe teaches the whole class, whatever they're doing shouldn't be separate for your child. They shouldn't be having special relationships that are secrets, right? No relationship in camp should be a secret. That's very important for your children to know, that no camp relationship should be a secret. Your child has the right to say no to anybody anytime they're uncomfortable, and you'll always support them. And that if there's any type of special relationship that someone wants to have with them, that always wants to take them for walks in the forest or anything like that, then you want your child to discuss that with you. You want them to, because you feel that you can be of help. You'll always be there to listen. And you as parents need to watch out for a special relationship after camp. Is there somebody, and this has happened so often, the camp is over and either an adult or a counselor or somebody has a very special relationship with your child, and ends up calling them all the time, giving them gifts, bringing them money, coming to visit. You want to make sure that the camp is camp, and when they come home, they come home. There's a certain amount of contact they may have, but it has to feel right to you as a parent. You have to listen to your inner voice as well. Okay, let's talk about warning signs. How would we know after camp if anything inappropriate happened? So what I say is, first, did your kid have a good time in camp? So spend time together and ask about camp. I can't tell you how many kids we've talked to have said that they come home from camps and their parents will say things like, "Oh, did you have a great time in camp? That's great." And that's the entire camp discussion. That's it. So glad you had a great time, right? You need to ask, did you enjoy camp? Would you want to go to this camp next summer? How'd you spend your time? What was your favorite activity? You don't want to ask all of this at one time. If you pepper them with all these questions at once, they'll be mad, right? They'll rebel, they'll whatever. But you have to find the right time and the right ways to do that. What was your least part of camp? How'd you feel about your counselors? What were your counselors' names? Which was your favorite? Did you make good friends? Were there kids or counselors that you didn't like being with? How were the kids in your bunk? Did you feel safe in camp? Is there anything you'd like to share with me about camp this summer? So again, watch how you have this conversation. Don't pepper them, but find ways, comfortable ways, or a comfortable time, taking a drive, going out for ice cream, taking them to the beach, taking them somewhere and saying, let's talk about camp. I'm curious about how camp was for you, and see if you can find a really nice way of bringing it up. Now, what I want you to also be aware of, what are physical signs and symptoms that something may have happened during camp. So I can tell you that I got a call from a parent after one summer, and she said, I sent my daughter to camp. She was in sixth grade. She was a great student. She was very, very social. She was in the school play. She was in, she had friends over all the time. She was terrific. And she came back from camp and she pretty much doesn't leave her bedroom. I have a hard time getting her to go to school. She doesn't talk to her friends. There's nothing about her that is the same as it was before. Now, that's something you want to be aware of. If there's a dramatic difference in the child you sent and the child you got back, you need to really find out. You need to really ask some questions, right? If you're seeing nightmares or sleep problems or new fears, if there's these unexplained behavioral changes or personality changes, if they resist routine bathing and toileting or changing times, things they've always done before, but now they don't want to change. They don't want to put pajamas on. They don't want to go to a bathroom. They don't want to shower, something like that. If you know that they have a secret that they absolutely refuse to talk about, right? If they start having a lot of physical symptoms, headaches, abdominal pains, things like that. If all of a sudden there's a lot of new words for body parts, or they're demonstrating an adult-like knowledge of the body, that might be something you want to figure out more about. Or, like we said, if they come home and there's this special relationship with an adult or an older child that we talked about. So what do you do if a child does disclose? First, support your child, right? Research shows that the single most important factor in a child's doing well after abuse is steady emotional support of their family. So you want to remain calm. You want to just they need to know you can receive what they say. They feel in their head this is so big that even their parent can't handle it. If you get excited, then they say, yeah, I'm right. They can't handle it. You want to stay calm and receive whatever they say. Just listen. Just use their language. Don't ask a lot of questions. Don't lead them on. You'll get the rest of the story later. Let them disclose what they want and just be there. Be there calmly and quietly, letting them know you're listening, right? Explain that abuse is never their fault, right? Because the statistics show that 70% of children don't disclose abuse. Of those that do, 70% of those that did said that the adult did not hear them or understand what they were saying. They couldn't, that they felt that the person didn't validate what they were saying and didn't understand it, and they never told again. What you want to tell your child is that I'm here. It's never your fault. And it may have felt bad to you. You may have all these feelings, right? But I believe it's never your fault. It's always the other person's fault. And no matter what you tell me, I believe you, right? That's what they need to know. The number one reason children do not disclose is that they fear no one will believe them. The number one thing you need to do as a parent is believe them. And then you need to thank them for trusting you and telling you what happened, and let them know that they did the right thing. Telling was the right thing to do. And then let them know that you're going to get the appropriate help for your child. Now, if somebody in camp was inappropriate, you do need to notify the camp. You need to utilize whatever community resources there are to make sure that your child gets help. And if the other child needs help as well, it's not your job to get them help. It's your job to make sure that the camp knows what happened and that they take responsibility. So you have to be the calm, loving parent who lets a child know it's safe to talk to me and that you get your child the help they need. And that's what I'm hoping is going to make it a safe camp for your summer, so that they love camp, and that you as a parent having these tools so that you prepare in advance, that this will empower you as a parent so that your child will have a safe summer. And so I wish all of your children a very happy, healthy, safe summer, and that you as a parent can feel relieved because you know what you need to do. And I'm hoping this is helpful to you. Okay, let me see if I can get at this. Okay. Okay. Let me just see. If there are any questions that you want to put into the Q&A, that's probably the best way to do it. Okay. Okay, I don't see any questions.
I see there's 2 hands raised. I think they want us to unmute them. Is that okay, or prefer they type it in?
Let me see if I can, I don't see it somehow. I can't see it.
If you go to attendees, you'll see a hand raised. Now there's one. Should I? Okay, let me do it. Hold on. Do you have a question? You're allowed to talk. You have a question? Esther, I see your hands is raised. You have a question? I guess not, even though I guess it's a mistake.
Okay. Oh, the other one is mine. I don't know how I did it or how to undo. Oh, there we go.
Well, thank you for thank you for a very informative and important presentation.
Okay. All righty. Well, good night, everybody. Have a safe summer.
Thank you so much. Bye.